improvement.
My bad. All right, well, I guess I have to start with, he's not here, so. Luchin.
Yes.
Hiller. Wolf.
Here.
Muller.
Here.
Loretti.
Here.
Francis.
Here.
Youngs.
Here,
Thomas.
Here.
Hager. Swerts.
Here.
Crawl. Hanson.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Bose. Lauer.
okay, I need an approval of the minutes for June 25, 2024, as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
All in favor?
I
missed one. Acknowledge that the meeting was properly posted, would you please?
I certify it.
Nice, yeah. Okay. Number 6, do you have any communications?
I do not.
Okay, then we're gonna go to the committee, department heads and chairman's report. We'll go around the room. We'll start with Kurt.
Finance met on July 16th. Most of my discussion, I'll say, for our last agenda item. We did talk about opioid settlement dollars, decided to create a new special fund to account for it in the accounting system, and also to open up a new bank account to keep those funds separate. And pretty much the rest of what we talked about, I'll pick up on the last agenda item.
Anything else, Kurt? Thank you. I don't think Tannerson got anything. Can you go?
I was in a memorial building meeting. Doug, you're the chair for that, so I'll let that one go till it's your turn to talk.
Go ahead. Get the minutes.
She took good notes.
Yeah, she did.
So we have somebody who's converting all of the 2023 accounting to QuickBooks Online. She's done a great job of doing that. She's nearly done. The cash balance in the checking account for the memorial building was a little over $34,000. We are looking for an outside tax accountant to take care of the books for the memorial building. We also discussed rental agreements, rental fees, and insurance. We're going to start using a standardized rental agreement template that will be used with the standardized rental fees. We also discussed insurance and actually had the agent come to the meeting. So that was really informative. We did find that the Memorial Building Group, which is called the Iron County Memorial Building Restoration Fund, Inc., does have general liability coverage for the building if anybody were to get injured. Also has workers' compensation liability, but our insurance agent did recommend that we have directors and officers liability insurance to cover the committee or whoever is part of the Iron County Memorial Building Restoration Fund. That's a question. We don't know who that contact is. So Paul or Bill, if you know who that contact should be for that corporation, Iron County Memorial Building Restoration Fund, who
Roxanne, are you referring to the DFI?
yeah, like who is actually representing that corporation?
On paper, it says it's you, Bill, and you, Paul.
Alright.
Yeah,
Is
we want
it
you-
the two of you?
I don't want to see it.
Or is there somebody else we should
I don't know.
be?
I'm just saying.
We want you to come to the
Probably
next
go on
memorial
Travis.
building and explain all this to us, and how it got the way
Go on,
it is.
Chevy should take care of all the paperwork. He had paperwork.
Uh-huh.
I only see Bill's name on here. I don't see Paul's.
I never heard of it before.
Paul's was on the original, one of the original incorporations.
Different. Okay.
He was a signer when it originally got. So we just need to know who to go to, or somebody can come to our next
I
meeting.
can find out from Bill Walsh.
Okay. The agent also recommended that renters get event insurance to further protect not only the Iron County Memorial Building Restoration Fund, but to protect the county. And the agent also recommending getting proof of insurance for the county from each of those renters. So that would be from Scotty Picotti and from the Iron County Restoration Fund. There's a big open house coming up that Julie Doucette the manager is planning to invite the public to see what the memorial building offers. One of the other items early on in the agenda that we've been talking about for the last two meetings is determining whether the Iron County Memorial Building Restoration Fund is a nonprofit, and the IRS doesn't have any kind of a record of it being a 501c3.
We tried
So,
to make it a nonprofit at one time, but the run into a problem with the bowling.
yeah,
That makes a profit.
not, yeah. Oh, okay, so it couldn't be done. It got,
We tried a couple times.
okay, got it. So it's not a, yeah. One of the other things that the committee keeps talking about also is what the lease agreements say and what's actually happening. So there's a triple net lease, because county owns the building. There's a triple net lease with the Iron County Memorial Building Restoration Fund. And it says that maintenance and building improvements should be done by the Memorial Building Restoration Fund, but we have things on our capital list that the county is paying for, and the county is gonna pay for again next year. There's a number of things. So we gotta kind of get that worked out so that we're again either following that triple net lease, or if the Iron County Memorial Building Restoration Fund doesn't really exist anymore, then we need to make up a new lease with whoever's gonna manage and run it. So that's kind of where we're sitting. And Scotty Picotti, his 2-year lease would have had a renewal. It'll expire in September of 2025, so we'll have to renegotiate a lease with him as well. There are a number of things that do need some maintenance in the memorial building, so there are some things that need to be done. And maybe, it's got a pretty good checking account balance. Maybe some of those things we prioritize what can be done. One of the other things is there's a baby grand piano in the memorial building, and we have asked a couple of nonprofits in the area if they would like to take that baby grand piano as a donation, but thus far, none of them have, so I think we
asked the college.
Yeah.
That was the last one we asked, and if anybody in this room knows of some organization that would love a beautiful piano,
Yeah, it's like.
and it's
It was donated by
Pretty
Alex Marcet.
right, who had some relationship with the community college, right? With
Yeah,
Go
he
Give
did.
It?
was a professor.
Yeah,
so that's what we asked last, but if they say no, we're back at square one, so if there's anybody that knows of any,
It doesn't get used there, and
right.
it's beautiful.
somebody's gotta maintain the humidifier and the dehumidifier,
Mhm.
and it'd be a shame for it to go to.
And somebody suggested the Mercer School. That's probably a good option too. So that's it for the Memorial Committee. Another thing that I attended was the Northern Waters Library Network quarterly meeting in Ashland. So that's basically the network that covers from Wausau north. So if any of you have a library card, you'll see it says NWLN at the bottom of it. And southern part of the state has another network that they use all the software for. And the two networks were, I think theirs is Wisconsin Valley Library System. The two systems we're talking about merging. And at the last meeting, they decided that they were not going to merge. So the Northern Waters Libraries Network will stay separate from the Wisconsin Valley Library System. We talked about the financial statements and budgets and went through all of that, and just some bylaws maintenance for the Northern Waters Library Network. So they basically take care of all the systems for all of the northern county libraries and provide them with all the services to effectively run their libraries from an electronic perspective. I have a couple updates also from the extension. I'm the chair of the extension committee, and there were approximately 100 campers this summer for all of the different day camps, like the Chopped 4-H day camp, the Fixer Upper Boat Edition 4-H day camp, the Sisu Endurance Team Running Club, Iron County Summer Youth Camp, and Iron County outpost camps. So really good attendance with over 100 campers. And that's all Neil Clem, who does all of those summer camp planning and 4-H. Horticulture, numerous columns, and also I think the horticulturist will be at the Iron County Fair. That's a good thing. And then community development, Joe Miller has been participating with Mercer's comprehensive plan and helping them set up their survey, tracking all the results from the survey for that 20-year comprehensive plan. In addition to working with the day camps and also having some setup responsibility with the military and veterans ball and the broadband committee, as well as working with some other grant related items. So those are my updates.
Thank you. What you got, Pat?
Recycling, we didn't have a meeting this month. We were trying to set up our annual collection for the end of August, but the guy is coming back in water rooms. So we may have to wait till next year to do it. He said we didn't have enough and we had a truckload in Mercer and a truckload in Early. Plus they have to come up and get an extra.
It sounds like enough to me, Pat.
No. I think he started back water. And then zoning, we're up on our permits already for the summer, and we're close to 60-some permits. That have already gone through. We're working on trying to raise some of the fees as to the putting in septic systems and stuff. But that's still in the works. And the airport, we're just going about as strong as we can right now. Flights seem to be holding along. They come in 3/4, half. And very easy.
I had to go out there and pick some people up, and you're right, yeah. It was 3/4 full a couple times. That's a good thing.
And most flights are that way. That's still pretty good. And then we have applied for some grants for turnout gear for firemen unit. And we haven't heard back whether we're going to get that money or not. We're still working. And that's basically all we have.
Thank you, Pat. Karen?
Yeah, the committees that I chair are, we didn't meet this month. But I do want to share that Melissa from the Health Department and Kelly from Human Services, as well as Kelly from Children's Services, we met with Mercer School to explore some programs that we can start offering to our Mercer school system. So that's something that I'm excited about, and hopefully it comes to fruition.
Good. Dougie, you've been busy.
Yeah, the fair is, it's right on schedule. We've got another day of work tomorrow, and I think we'll be pretty much ready. Carnival's setting up as we speak. Weather looks like it should hold off. It's gonna be nice and warm. Yeah, Grounds is looking really well. Blacktop was done, but they have to come back. Kind of messed up in one area. It's a little soft, so if they redo it, but they're gonna do it after the fair. Other than that, it sounds like the commercial building, everything is full for this fair. Barns, it sounds like they're gonna be full. And a lot of people are talking about it, so.
Yeah, it does. I think it's good. I want to thank the Iron County Fair Association. They do a nice job, and Doug Swartz has been out there for the last couple of weeks, doing a lot of hours out there getting it ready, and I thank you for that. And all of them. Paul was there too. Yeah, Paul Muller was there, but a lot of you was there. I thank you all. I think it's going to be a good thing. I think a lot of people will attend.
Yeah, we're hoping, 4,000 a day coming through, so we're hoping, try to beat some records again this year.
Well, as long as you make enough to pay off the loan, because I signed for it. Hey, Scotty, what do you got?
Forestry, some good news, 808, stumpage, 880,828. Last year at this time, 880,483. We are ahead of last year now for the first time all year. So that's good news. We have a carbon project that's active. The Iron County project is now on the short list for a potential sale here in August. So keep your fingers crossed. We'll know more hopefully at the next meeting. County parks are full over the 4th of July. Saxon Harbor only had 4 open slips. We've had some issues down there with septic. The pumping costs have skyrocketed over the last year. What was it, $7,000 some dollars? $9,000 some dollars for pumping up the septic tanks there down in Saxon Harbor. The costs have gone up because they can't empty where they'd like to empty. Let's just say that. Other than that, we had a presentation from a Gary Walton from RPM Productions who wanted to start a cross-country motorcycle event up at Whitecap and wanted to buzz some little bikes on part of our county trails there. And we're going to hear more back from him, I think, in December on this, on an affirmative date, and see how it meshes with our 15-year plan. Other than that, that's all we had from the forestry. The budget was forwarded less than last year.
Thank you. What you got, Bill?
Highway, we had a meeting on July 16th. You have minutes are in your packet, but we went into closed session, had employee evaluations for 4 employees. Next month we'll do 4 back. Border bridges will be split 50-50. Previously, they were split 1/3 the county, 1/3 the city of Early, and 1/3 city of Ironwood. County will no longer be involved with the split. Crack sealing on 51 is completed. Paving on County Highway J and H to start the end of July. And culverts on County H are installed. Mowing at the far end of Highway 51. Second week in Irish, we're going to start painting for the state, so that'll make us some money. And that's about it.
Thank you. Jamie?
Yeah, so we just had our IT meeting before this regular meeting here. We met at 5. There was some extensive conversation on basically kind of moving forward a 5-year or whatever, 2-year, 5-year strategic plan of some of our needs and our wants. Current list of items that Danny has that he has to implement to get done, such as door access that he's working on, the cameras to be installed at the county garage, and a little bit more in terms of trying to have some better communication between departments. And one of those will be to push, I should say, what Danny created a while back, which was a help desk. And he can handle some of the requests by email or phone calls, but I think we want to try that help desk and see how that works going forward for everybody. That would make Danny's job a little bit easier to get some of those things done. He's currently waiting for some quotes to come back for budgeting and finance software. It was suggested that going forward, we start to do RFPs to these companies with more specific quotes. Under the budget, so through the month of June, currently we're at 43.8%. So we're holding our own there, considering it's halfway through the year. Danny's meeting on August 13th with Computer Doctors to see exactly what we pay them for and to see if there is any items that we can handle in-house. And it was brought up whether or not we have a contract with Computer Doctors or not. We don't know. I don't know if anybody knows that, but we're going to find that out on the 13th of August. So under the 5-year operational budget items, that was tabled for now until we get some more details on that. Going forward, though, we will see that all servers, networks, firewalls, Wi-Fi access points, those are all getting replaced, Danny, in the next 5 years?
All part of the 5 years.
All part of the 5-year plan. It sounds as though that we probably want to start implementing a web-based security network stuff that you can basically, how should I put that?
We'll continue to migrate our existing physical systems to online cloud-based systems to limit our hardware overhead going forward to save money in the long run.
Yeah, thanks for helping me out with that. And part of that, so another thing that he's waiting on is all departments. Danny has asked that you guys get them any kind of hardware or software needs that you think that you're gonna want to have. So he's waiting on that. What's that?
To an extent, we've done that.
Have done that already, so you're not waiting for any other department to get back to you?
Unless they thought of something new.
Okay. We approved the 2025 budget, and that's getting forward to finance for review. And that pretty much sums it up. Do you want to explain this part of it, Dan, or?
Yes.
Can you talk about
Yeah,
this
you
now?
talk about that.
Yeah.
Part of your zoning.
It was
We didn't get a chance to talk about that.
It was requested by several board members that we upgrade the video conferencing system in this room to make it easier for board members to start actual video conferences when they're not here, when other members aren't here. I have a quote on that. Because this is a large room, it's a larger expense than some of our smaller conference rooms have been. It can come out of my miscellaneous hardware budget. I have a $30,000 miscellaneous hardware budget. The quote is for $3,100. I don't know if there's a limit that has to be approved. It was either $2,500 or $5,000. Does anyone know what that is?
2,500.
Okay, so then it will have to be approved by finance. Yes. Okay, so we'll send it to finance for next month.
Thank
Anything
you.
else I forgot, Danny? Anything
No, that's good recap.
Mario.
No.
Paul.
I just want to say one thing about the fair. I'd like to see all of you out there come out and see what the volunteers did.
Yeah,
Really amazing.
it is.
It's this weekend.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, that's all I got.
That's good. You're right. To go out and look. Number 8, public comment. Anybody have any public comment? If none, we're continuing on with our Meet the People in Your Neighborhood, the county. And we're gonna do the GIS and the IT guy today. Who wants to go first?
I don't think Neil's here, is he? I'm here.
Hey, he's here.
You're right back
There he is.
You wanna go first, Neil?
Sure.
I'll bring it up.
Yeah, stand up and look around because some people didn't even know who you are. Who is this guy?
I am Neil Martinko, the GIS specialist for the county. GIS is Geospatial Information Services. Originally, I was hired in 1995 as a forester. Worked for forestry for 15 years. In 1999, the state started giving out grant monies for parcels to be digitized. Land records modernization, they called it. So rather than going for all the old papers to actually being digitized, being able to see it on a web map, being able to see it online, Register of Deeds, Treasury. So first was Saxon with Shoreland grant. And then the next 4 years, I think it was, the county did all the other towns and the 2 cities. That's what I can see. At the time, the Land Information Council was created, which Aaron, I don't know if still is part of, or
Yeah, Karen asked me the other day if she was still on this, and she is, but you don't meet very often.
no, we're going to have a couple meetings at the end.
Yeah.
Through the end of the year to get what I've got going here. Land Information Council was created. Trotzig, the Register of Deeds, was the land information officer. Forestry was given a seat since it was managing a third of the county at the time. And Salzman, who was the administrator, appointed me as the forestry rep. The other towns and cities were digitized by MSA, engineering architecture firm out of Rhinelander, and the Register of Deeds began to scan deeds and make them available online. In 2010, Trotzig and Bergman petitioned Bergman was the zoning administrator, petitioned the county to create a GIS position. They would be receiving a federal grant from Representative David Obey at the time, which would have air photos flown for the whole county, and would also start receiving other state grants. So the GIS office was created. Specifically, it's called office. It was created as not a department at the time. Dennis DeRosa was the board chair. Didn't want it to be under an office department. He didn't want it to be a department because he didn't want a new department head. I wasn't part of those discussions, so I don't know exactly why, but it has all the duties of a department. Trotzik was the land information officer until he retired. Bergman took over until he transferred over to Ironwood. And in 2017, I was made the land information officer also. That's a state mandated position. Basically, it's just a land information contact for the state. Turn in annual data sets to the state, which include parcels, roads, addresses, election wards, and school districts. Most of my budget basically is state grants. We get roughly $100,000 to $135,000 every year to be used for land records modernization. There are some restrictions on part of it until we meet certain benchmarks, which is basically all the section corners of the county being resurveyed. Other than that, it can be used by, basically, I've got a whole list of, can go over later. Grant is based on statewide document registration, so every document in the state pays to be registered. Most of that goes to the big fund, which then gets up into the counties. Past projects over the past 10 years have included section corner location remonumentation, 17 projects. We've located over 2,300 section corners and gotten GPS coordinates to within the size of a dime, if you lay it on top. We've gotten air photos in 2011 from the OB grant. Since then, we've gotten our own in 2015, 2020, 2030. We've upgraded Register of Deeds software, scanning and indexing of all, well, not all old, but a lot of the old books in there. We've helped with treasury software upgrades and getting that online. We've helped zoning permitting software, getting that online. We have the public web map, which has most of our data. We covered GPS software licenses. We purchased a large format printer and scanner. And the Land Information Council, we're gonna have to have a meeting because we have a new 3-year land information plan we have to develop. Every 3 years, we have to develop the plan so that then every year we can apply for the grants. And this year, we're looking at, as far as I know, not much more than section corners. And I've not asked the other Register of Deeds, Treasurer, Zoning if they have anything they would like to add to it. I went through and made a list of all the departments I've helped in over the years, and I can go through some of them if you want, but basically I can't think of more than 2 or 3 departments in the county that I've not supplied data for. Currently, the big one is the Next Generation 911 upgrade. All the address points and roads were redigitized, but they were upgraded to meet federal standards so that they will work in the new software and will eventually be able to work statewide.
Do you have a lot to do with the sheriff's department?
Not a whole terrible lot other than supplying them data.
Okay. How about Stacy? You must work with Stacy.
Oh, yes, I'm the one who actually decides on what fire numbers are, depending on how long they're points along the road center lines, which he then buys the signs for and pounds in the ground. I've helped with search and rescue with Sheriff's Department and Stacy. And we produced a fire zones book a few years ago, which was developed with the DNR and given to all the local fire departments in the county.
Anybody have any questions for him?
I have one quick question.
Yep.
So the state aid that you receive has declined over the last couple of years because of the recording during
Yes.
COVID, when the real estate market was hot, there was a bigger pot to allocate.
Yes.
And it was 200,000 and your budget next year is 100,000. So is that 100,000 required Is there a requirement that that be used on specifically for contracted services or?
Not all of it. We have to meet, there's actually three grants in there. One $1,000 training grant. There's a strategic initiative grant, and then there's a base budget grant. The strategic initiative grant, which was the low one this year because of the decline in deeds.
Yep.
That one has restrictions until we meet the benchmark of getting all our section corners done. But the other one, the base budget grant, doesn't have those restrictions.
Because it seems like your budget, the state aid grant is the exact same number as contracted services. So has that been the plan in the past? Or
Yes,
is that,
that's,
but that's not necessarily a requirement?
the
For all
contracted
of it.
service is just the incoming, once the incoming was the outgoing for the grant.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have one. So your electronic records then have public access to anybody that would want to search a document?
Yeah.
Okay, and
Register
what's
of
the, okay,
Excuse me. Yeah, the Register of Deeds, the Land Shark, they call it,
and
also the tax roll databases online.
that's all complete?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to say you're doing a great job with all that. I went out to the tax portal. If you go to the Aaron County site, it's the tax portal up on the right?
Yep.
You get in that.
Right there.
Like if you look up your own portal, somewhere in there, over here about, you click on the GIS button or whatever, and you can look at all the mapping. It's almost like a survey map of your own property, your neighbor's property, or whoever, all in Iron County. So
Since we've been locating the section corners, it's gotten a lot better. When MSA first digitized the parcels, we had no section corner data, so lines were running through people's houses.
Anybody else? I want to thank you for coming. Because I really, some of the stuff that you said you did, I did not realize you do. And I thank you for that.
Hold this if you want it.
Okay, now the IT guy.
I'm Danny Gardner. I'm your county IT director. I was hired in April 2022 as the first county IT director. Before that, there was no IT department. There was no IT budget. I was spread out through the general fund as well as various department budgets. Last 2 years, I've spent pulling that all together to the best of our ability and trying to figure out the needs of the county going forward. I have an excellent IT committee now. We're working on a strategic plan for the next 5 years of the county software and hardware needs. And I think we're in a really good spot there. My daily tasks are in a couple different areas. I run a help desk for software and hardware support for 100 plus end users, computers, mobile devices, software that they use on a daily basis, all comes to me. I am assistant administrator for all our hardware and software on site, our servers, our network equipment, our Wi-Fi access points, our server software, all the software and systems that our employees use every day, file storage, backup systems. That all falls under my purview. And then I also make sure that all our licensing for software is in order. I make sure that we are prepared for all contingencies. Should we ever have a problem with ransomware, a hack of some sort, that our backup systems are in place, that our networks are segmented apart and divided properly to limit any access that anyone from outside this building may have. I'm looking forward to the next couple of years working with you guys and hopefully beyond. And I'm really looking forward to the guidance from my IT committee. I think we're gonna do good things for the county and hopefully make things easier and hopefully make things less expensive.
I think it's important to note that when you came in as well, we were 10 years behind.
Yeah, there's been a lot of catch up
A lot of catch-up.
and there's more to do. There's always more to do. My list keeps growing, so it never ends.
I did forget to mention that you will be able to reduce your Office 365 licenses too.
Yes,
So we're gonna save some money there, actually.
yes.
We're not sure how much yet, but. Good-
Should
good
be a
cost
couple
savings.
thousand.
Any questions for Danny? Me and Scotty Erickson pushed for this IT thing for a long time, and then, like you
And
said,
Ken, sorry.
yeah, and Ken, sorry. Yep, you're right. We pushed for it. We got it. Like Danny said, he was the very first one. He was playing catch up right from the beginning. He didn't. This IT committee is going to give Danny a lot of help and a lot of vision in where the county wants to go in the future. And I think you're right. I think they're going to do
And you
well.
guys made the right decision. You 100% needed on-site IT support.
Yeah.
I don't know how you did it before that.
Well, we just,
Well, I do know how you did it. A lot of stuff didn't get done. So, the biggest thing I heard was, we never called anyone because we didn't want to pay computer doctors out of our budget, so it just never got
pretty
done.
much, all these departments were pretty much on their own to figure their way through it. Now, we want to reduce that computer doctor bill.
That is-
Yes.
that is- I meet with them on August 13th. We'll go over everything. I have some ideas on where line items can be reduced, and we'll keep going from there.
But I think the county's moving in the right direction, and there's some things that we can change, that's going to help all the departments, I guess.
We have some large security projects coming up for door access, for camera systems on buildings from day one that I said, why don't these exist? Why don't we have cameras on these buildings?
We
So,
trusted people.
but unfortunately, things happen, and we're gonna approach that now, and that's my major project during the summer. We have a couple buildings that need system upgrades.
Any questions for Danny?
Why would you need security?
Danny, thank you for coming tonight and explaining what you do to us, and thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Short and sweet.
Yeah, that's what we want. We just want a little thing of what you do so everybody on this board knows. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to number 10. Discuss approved new account and signers for opioid funds with Chippewa Valley Bank. You wanna take this, Kristen?
So this was at finance, this month, and they decided to set up a separate checking account at Chippewa Valley. Chippewa also requires us to have in the minutes who the signers are. Typically, it's Clara, myself, and Murph. So we need that in the minutes and approval to do so that we can set up the separate account to keep those funds separate from the general.
I would make a motion to open up a new account with the treasurer, the clerk, and the chair as signers on that account for the opioid settlement dollars.
I have a motion from Kurt. I have a second from Roxanne. Any other discussion? We'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Okay, number 11, rezone from A1 agriculture to RR residential, recreational residential, Town of Mercer at 5655 N. Robin. Doctor, owner, Teresa Palmquist. Do I have a motion? I got a motion from Pat Hansen,
I'll second that.
and a second from Karen Lawler. Any discussion? If none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, number 12, rezone from F1 Forestry to R3 rural residential, Town of Mercer. That's 7009 West Delbecca Road, owners Brian and Jessica. How do you say that? Piaseski? Piasecki.
Piasecki.
Yep.
I don't know. Looks like it.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Got a motion by Jamie Francis and a second by Paul Muller. Does anybody have any discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 13, discuss action resolution 2024-3068 authorizing Iron County to enter into settlement agreement with Kroger Company and agree to terms and addendums to the MOU allocating settlement agreement proceeds. I want a little info on this. Give me some. Doing what I read and I didn't kind of get it all.
It was very lengthy, and
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm the one that should be explaining this stuff.
That was approved by Tim Dino.
Yes, it
right?
was,
Yeah,
and it
that's
was at the last
agreement of
meeting.
the opioid,
There was,
multiple counties with the opioid settlement.
and this is
Correct.
continuation from all the other ones.
Right.
This is a new one that was added in.
Correct.
I know, Callie and them probably know more about that better than I do.
Callie, you wanna just make sure we all understand we're voting on, it's from past, it's been approved, it's just all of them lumped together.
Sure, so the one that you have right now is the Kroger settlement. They had a couple of different, types of lawsuits that were filed, one against the pharmacies, one against the distributors. And so this is just a progression as we go through all of the different, companies. Kroger's just another one that, has now settled. So there's, I just got an email today, I think there's another one that's settling, as well, so it's just as they go through the court system, we settle.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the resolution 2024-3068 authorizing Iron County to enter into settlement agreement with Kroger and agree to the terms and addendum 2 to the MOU allocating settlement agreement proceeds.
I second that.
I got a motion by Roxanne and a second from Karen Lawler. If there's any other discussion,
I just wanted to ask one more
Callie?
question. Oh, yeah, Kelly? There have been some other settlement proceeds, as you mentioned, from other different vendors like Kroger, you know, CVS, Walgreens, all these other drug vendors, right? And so we have, is it a couple of years worth of proceeds already from some of these sitting in some accounts? When we get that, then Claire will put all of it into that new opioid settlement account. But here's the real question, you know, that's money that's just sitting there. We're not able to do anything with it until we decide what we're going to do with it. And it's got to be according to the rules in these opioid settlements. So it'll only be spent on certain things. So have we defined, has there been a team that's looked at this and said, here is where we need to spend this opioid settlement money because we have a problem in area X? And that fits in with the opioid settlement. And are you gonna bring that back to the board to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so we have a AODA coalition that's already been established, that's where we meet and have these conversations. And so we have gotten the CHA data from public health. And so we're analyzing that and seeing if there's any gap areas, sending out a survey to the community to see if they have any significant that we can gather as well. And then formulate a plan to move forward with that. We talked about having kind of like a standing agenda item on the public health meeting in order to address and kind of bring back any information.
Is there anything that we're already doing that can fit into that maybe can help our budget crisis as well?
Yes, so public health is doing some things with Narcan. So yes, we have some of those things already occurring. I don't know that they're going to solve any budget crises at the moment, but they are small pieces that we can pull from.
So we can start spending that money instead of our regular budget money.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you. And with the mental health services that we're providing with the counselors that we're using within the county for services.
Mental health is a little bit of a stretch. We have AODA services here, and so we already have a couple of pots of money that we pull from for some AODA services, but this could also supplement that for some outpatient or residential services as well.
Anybody can vote on Polish?
No, but anybody's free to attend, it's not. If anybody would like a notice, our next meeting is August 6th. August 6th at 9 a.m. here.
Is, Kelly, it's, this sheet I'm looking at is, iron's not listed as far as a percentage allocation, unless, did it get cut off or?
It's probably got
Oh, okay.
It was 0.00061.
It's not a lot.
It's not a
I
lot.
figure we're probably the lowest out of everybody, right? Okay.
But when you multiply that times $1 billion, it actually adds up.
It's 0.061.
0.061%.
Yeah. But it's something that we can.
Any more discussion on this? If there's not, All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 14, discuss action for the 2024 Iron County Child Support Agency review for correction on audit findings, and I'll let Teresa and Danny explain what she got dinged on and what Danny got to do to fix it.
The major thing, so the IRS audit requires that child support have 2 physically controlled levels of security. So your first level is the door leading into the office. That is locked with a key. Those are physically controlled. The second level is the glass doors you see. You see one on this side going in. You see one on the other side, the DA's office going out. Those, technically, even though they're locked, are not physically controlled locks. They're combination locks. You type in a combination, you turn the knob, it opens. Because there's no physical control of that 4-digit code, it's just a code floating down in the air, anyone can know it. It does not meet the IRS audit requirements. We discussed doing physical keys, but that would have an issue for sheriff's deputies and Hurley police getting in there should they need to access those doors. They would all have to have a key for that as well. The easiest solution would be digital key fobs hooked into our already existing access control system. The only problem there, our current controller on this level only has 1 extra slot available for a door. So because we have 2 doors, we have to buy a whole nother expansion controller so we can add the second door to our access control system. So it added a little bit to the cost. The state is going to pay for 66%, so we are on the hook for 33%. High-end estimate with replacement of locks, replacement of the door push system, the key fobs, or key fob readers, and then the additional expansion module for the access control system was about $3,000, so the county would be on the hook for $1,000. I'll let you take it from here.
And that just seems the easiest. We all have our key fobs.
The sheriff's department have key fobs that can be programmed for it. Hurley PD has key fobs that can be programmed for it. The people that need access to it can then have access to it without having a bunch of keys floating around.
Go for it.
And Teresa has it in her 2024 budget, the money to cover this.
I had the state send an email and gave it to Murph
No.
explaining that
wanted
the
everybody
state
to know.
reimburses. And I asked what budget to come out of 24, 25. They said it didn't matter to them, so we met with Murph, Bill, the maintenance, Danny, myself, and Kristen, and we decided to have it done by December 31st was best so we could meet the time frame. But I do need it decided because I have to submit the correction plan back to them.
I don't even think we had to vote on this, Teresa. The reason I wanted it on here is just so the rest of the county board knew what was going on.
Absolutely.
So $1,000 will be out of, paid for by the state, in addition to the other 2?
If that's, it could be less. I don't
Sure.
know, I get reimbursements, yeah.
Okay, all right.
We don't have to vote on that or nothing. I just wanted everybody on the board to know what was going on.
But don't we need to vote because it's over
We can.
2,300?
Yeah,
So
but
it's
you
all
got it in your budget.
isn't it?
You can still vote, it's not
I'll
Yeah,
make
we
a
can vote,
motion
they
to-
gonna
I'll
kill
make a
us.
motion to approve it.
Okay, Scotty already made the motion.
Whenever,
Anybody-
whenever they send
Thank
it.
you.
Mario already seconded it. Any discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, and then number 15, discuss action resolution 2024 to dash 3069 mental health community support program. That would be you, Callie. You're up for that. You talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So currently for the CSP program, which is a community support program, the purpose of that program is to keep people who are, have a severe and persistent mental illness in the community instead of in high-cost institutions, keep them here in their community with their families and provide them support to do so. Currently, that is a 60-40 split for reimbursement. And so this resolution is asking for the states to put in their 25 to 27 biennial budget, full reimbursement for CSPs. So 100% reimbursement for CSP and for crisis.
I like it.
This is from the counties association, is that where this is
From the
from?
Counties Association, they were asking for support from,
The state?
no, the Wisconsin Counties.
Yeah, they're asking for the state to kick in more.
Yeah, because they're lobbying the state to
I'm all
get the
for
law
it.
passed,
Yep.
yeah.
This was a priority for them last year, but it did not
Yeah,
go through, so hopefully it'll work this.
I'll make that motion.
I got a motion from Scott Harrison. Got a second from Bill Thomas. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion action on the resolution, 2024-3070 to recognize Dorothy and Joe Wallachevitz.
I'll
Dorothy and
make that motion.
Yeah. Okay, I got a motion by Bill Thomas. Second,
I'll support it.
Scott Harrison seconded it. Discussion. They did a lot for this community. I'm gonna give them an award. We're gonna do it Sunday at 2:00, just before the pie raffle at the Iron County Fair. They have a lot of family coming up, so they instead of coming here tonight, they asked me if I'd go out there and do it, and I said, sure. So with no other discussion, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 17, discuss action for posting the position of the Iron County Corp Council. That's on you, Roxanne. Can you explain a little bit? I kind of threw that at you.
Sure. So as many of you know, our current corporation counsel, Tim Dean, is retiring as of the end of this year. He submitted us his letter a month or two ago. And we, like many other counties, we have put together a job description. This is a part-time contract position because we just use the corp counsel as needed. That's what we've historically done in the past. So we outlined the primary responsibility you can see in your packet, and those are consistent with section 59.42 of Wisconsin statutes. It goes through all the qualifications, licenses, certifications, knowledge, skills, and so on. So the plan is that this would be posted just as we do for any other positions. And then whoever would apply would submit the resume, cover letter, proposed contract services engagement letter, and then there would be an interview committee from the board. And then we would select who that next corporation counsel would be. So hopefully we can get some applicants. I left the application deadline fluid. Maybe it could be, if it gets posted pretty soon, it could be that it's out there for a month or so. And then the applications would come into Kristen. She would collect them, get the committee together, we'd conduct interviews.
I make that motion that we accept the posting for position for the Iron County Corp Council.
I have a motion by Karen Lawler. I got a seconded by Pat Hansen. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor? Oh, wait a minute, Diane. Diane, what do you got?
So on that committee, will you be inviting any of the department heads that utilize corp counsel?
That's probably a really good.
I think that's a great idea, Diane. Yeah, if you are using them, you know more, yeah.
Chair of the committee.
Yeah. Okay, do it.
So who should be invited? Can you let us know who are the primary users? I wouldn't. Sure. know
Between
right
her and Teresa Way,
I have a question.
you go ahead.
When you're talking about corporation counsel, right now we have Doug Musket doing stuff for human services, and then Tim Dean doing stuff for the county and for child support. Are there any counties that have one person doing all of it instead of this division? One attorney that is corporation counsel,
Most,
period, you know what I mean?
most of the counties, when I went out and researched setting up this job posting, like I looked at several different counties that have had recent postings, Price County, Door County.
Sure.
Usually they're full-time positions because they're
Okay.
larger counties, and that would encompass everything, as you're saying.
How about like Pepin? What does Pepin have?
I don't know anything
Well,
across that
because
line.
they're kind of similar to us.
But you still have to have probably a backup for those times when you have conflicts,
Sure,
right? I
sure.
mean, a couple of you have mentioned in previous conversations that you need to have somebody who's on the hook for a little bit, something extra.
Right, and then I think Matt does some stuff too. It's just, you know, we work with all of them upstairs, so I'm
So,
just wondering if there was 1 versus 3 versus 2 versus, you know.
how about we kind of table that as a conversation as we interview people?
Yeah.
We kind of go through that conversation as a committee and decide what the right answer is.
Okay.
Good point.
You have a motion and I have a second. We discussed it. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 18, discussion action on the 2025 budget. That'd be Kurt.
So I'll do the best I can to kind of bring us up to date to where I think we're at. Start with a recap. 2023, the general fund cash declined 1.3 million. And after removing carbon credits and stumpage revenue and adjusting stumpage revenue downward 250,000, the 24 budget stood at a deficit of 2.6 million. And through the work in phase 1, that current year deficit has decreased to about 850,000. So we reduced it by 1.75 million. The reduction came primarily from 3 areas: identifying and correcting budget oversights. There was almost 700,000 of revenues that we identified that were missed. We had about 725,000 of expense reductions, primarily human services, highway forestry, courthouse janitorial, and about 300,000 in timing items, including lower forestry payouts to the club because we had no snow this season, and also postponing some 24 capital items. So while phase 1 process was a worthwhile undertaking, the deficit has not been completely eliminated. And it seems likely that the initial 25 deficit that we'll see once Kristen enters all the numbers will be at I think will be at a number north of 1.2 million. So none of that recap I don't think should be surprising to anybody in this room. I want to talk a bit about a 9-year cash decline. At the January county board meeting, a gentleman by the name of Paul Sturgill, hopefully I pronounced that right, spoke during public comment, and what he said at the time caught my attention. In summary, at December 31st, 2015, the Treasury reported cash in the general fund of $5.7 million. 2019, Enbridge paid the county one-time payment for certain easement rights of $2.2 million. A couple of years after that, COVID came in and gave us one-time dollars in excess of 1.1 million. So when you add those 3 numbers up, you have $9 million. And at the end of 2024, we're projecting our general fund cash to be at 2 million. So you had a 9-year cash decline of $7 million. And I think the question Paul essentially was asking at that meeting is, what happened to the cash? And more than anything else, I think this board needs to identify the causes of that long-term 9-year cash decline and reverse the trend. At the same time, as far as I can tell, the county never made a principal payment, nor did the county set aside dollars for Saxon Harbor costs, even though the county knew for many years it was going to owe somewhere in that $2.3 million range. So 7 years after the Saxon Harbor flood, county hasn't started to meet its obligation and repay its share of those costs. And that's going to have to change. My hope is the next time one-time dollars flow into the county, the board conversation is focused on deploying the vast majority of one-time dollars to debt reduction, replenishing the general fund cash, and investing in strategic capital expenditures. Additionally, a plan of action is required whenever one-time dollars are used to pay for operating costs. Why is that? Because when one-time dollars dry up or disappear, it always exposes a budget shortfall. Talk about operating revenue increases. So in contrast to the one-time dollars the county receives from time to time is the makeup and growth of ongoing operating revenues. A big part of the financial challenge facing the county, in my view, is the fact that operating revenue increases simply do not keep pace with operating expense increases. If the county has a $17 million budget and that budget increases by 2.5% annually, you need $425,000 of revenue increases each year to stay balanced. Given the complexities of county government and the state mandates, a 2.5 to 3% expense growth in operating expenses is not unreasonable. Question is how does the county pay for that? How does it pay for the $400,000 to $500,000 a year of cost increases? In the original 2024 budget, there was $9 million of ongoing revenues that came from things like state aids and fees and sales tax and stumpage revenue. And even after adjusting for the decline in stumpage revenue the past few years, it doesn't appear that the non-levy revenues are close to increasing 2.5% annually. So the growth in non-levy revenues is something we'll have to watch closely when the 25 budget numbers come in. So because the non-levy revenues don't grow at the same pace as inflationary expense growth, there's pressure both on the levy and on operating expense management to keep the budget balanced. That's the challenge. Talk about the levy. And we'll dive more into the levy when we meet again next meeting. But remember from past discussions, the levy is comprised of two parts: the base portion, which is 4.6 million, and the debt portion, which is currently 1.1 million. The base portion of the levy, which is used primarily to pay for operating costs, only increases a measly $46,000 annually. The base levy is limited by state statute to a formula tied to net new construction. And in Iron County's case, that's 1% times the $4.6 million levy. Whereas dollars received through the base levy can be used for either operational expenses or capital expenses, dollars received through the debt portion of the levy can only be earmarked for capital items. Debt levy dollars cannot be used to pay for operating expenses. Consequently, there are limitations to the size of the debt portion of the levy, which we need to carefully manage and look forward at least 3 years. Without going into a lot of detail at this time, Iron County is nearing its capacity to effectively utilize debt levy as a tool to increase the overall levy without going to referendum. All that was kind of heavy, so to say it another way, even if we wanted to plug the entire 2025 budget deficit with levy increases and make no expense reductions, I think we'd be prevented from doing so because of statutory limitations. So some level of budget reductions likely are going to be needed to balance the budget. Introduction to operating expense reductions. So finance at its last meeting, because in previous meetings we've talked levy a little bit, we've talked revenue, and through phase one we've done a lot of stuff. But now we have to have another serious discussion on what happens next if necessary. The thought is to create a list or a menu of expense reduction items from which the board can later choose from to balance the budget. I think there also needs to be a list of emerging tasks or ideas, because some of the ideas that we're coming up with are going to take more than 60 days to solve. My sense was that given the topic, the conversation at finance was handled in a professional manner. The committee members contributed ideas and suggestions. There were comments provided by non-committee members in attendance as well. I think for the board, some unpleasant budget decisions likely lie ahead. It's a budget season I certainly did not anticipate or imagine when I volunteered to fill a vacant county supervisor seat less than 18 months ago. And there are certainly parts of this process I take no joy participating in. But here we are. The board must provide the leadership and I think fulfill its primary duty, which is to balance the budget. Employee impact. There was an employee at the finance meeting who stated with a tinge of frustration that employees are going to have to pay some of the consequences for past board decisions. And I think that question, when asked, was largely rhetorical. But The phase one changes largely avoided direct employee impact. But given the size of the hole we're trying to dig out of, plus the fact that employee salaries and benefits represent about 50% of the $17 million county budget, it's unrealistic to think that employees wouldn't be impacted in some way. It is understandable that employees and even some board members would want to negate or minimize the employee impact. I get that. I just have not seen a single serious option laid out with specificity that closes the deficit without affecting employees to some degree. So if anybody does have that plan, now's the time to bring that forward. And I think, to be clear, the employee impact will not be even across the board, or may not be even across the board. If you get laid off, the impact to you is greater than the impact to someone who doesn't get laid off. If you're furloughed 2 hours a week, that 5% reduction in pay affects you differently than an employee who is not furloughed. Depending on how you use healthcare benefits, you may be asked to contribute more to deductibles or premiums or out-of-pocket expenses. Not only will employees be impacted, but likely so might taxpayers and perhaps the public with respect to some services that are no longer provided. That being all said, in any business, employees are the most important asset. And that's especially true for a service organization like county government. Employees have options, and the board must ensure that the county remains an attractive place to work, given other competing options in the region. Further, whatever we decide upon in the next couple months ultimately is going to have to be sold to the public, because the county is headed for referendum, and we will need the public to pass that referendum. State mandates. County government was created by the state legislature largely to carry out laws and mandates it passes. Not surprisingly, much of what the county does is mandated by state law. There was a suggestion made by a committee member to review all services provided by the county that are not mandated by the state. And there were a few department and expense grouping items that were considered at that meeting. One was the memorial building. Despite the language contained in the triple net lease, the county has been funding some amount for both operating and capital costs each year to the third-party entity managing the building. There was further discussion about perhaps reviewing all buildings owned by the county and determining whether some consolidation might take place in the future. There was discussion regarding the county's relationship with the Economic Development Council and whether that relationship is serving the county well, or whether economic development could be pursued in a different manner. There was discussion about UW Extension, which is not state mandated. There are some positions in Extension fully funded by the state, some are half funded, and some positions like the half-time horticulturist position, which is 100% funded by the county. And aside from reviewing all those positions, there was discussion about exploring with Extension how the community development position, for example, whose job description tasks include economic development, strategic planning, and entrepreneurial assistance, can better serve the county's economic development needs, expand upon grant writing, and perhaps help us eliminate some duplicating services. Potentially, if we're willing to do things a bit differently, there might be $125,000 of savings in that state mandated category. Wage increases versus health cost insurance adjustments. An employee asked why the board is considering a 2025 wage increase when there's a budget deficit to solve. And it seems likely what might happen is there would be some raise given, whether it's 2% or 75%, 75 cents an hour or whatever it is we decide upon. But that wage increase is largely offset by a shifting of health insurance costs through higher deductibles, premiums, or max out-of-pocket payments. Giving a wage increase to somebody and taking it back through higher health insurance costs, of course, is not ideal, but neither is freezing wages for a year. During the past 10 years, there's been a significant shift in the employer employee sharing of healthcare costs. And at finance, Roxanne provided some background on conversations her and Mario were having with the insurance agent. Iron County really hasn't made many significant changes to its health insurance framework in probably 10 years. Health insurance cost inflation outpaces general inflation each year. I would not be surprised if we look back 10 years to find healthcare spending then was $1 million and now it's grown to about $2 million. 7% increases for 10 years doubles your costs. Again, in the near future, we're going to have to go to the taxpayers to, at a minimum, ask them to increase the base levy through referendum. So we know that's coming, and whoever's going to sell that referendum question is going to have to answer some of those hard questions that we have, like, are we doing the right thing with health insurance, with pay, and even whether the fact that we pay employees a paid lunch is the right thing to do. So potentially there's $125,000 of savings if we were willing to look at that differently. Employee reduction and furlough. I think most people recognize that overall the county is generally properly staffed. Most every department is around because the services that department provides is mandated by the state. The county has about 90 employees, and it's not like the workforce can simply be reduced to 80 employees to save $1 million. I think that's unrealistic. But that being said, in any organization, there are always opportunities to look at the fringes and determine where some positions could be consolidated. One committee member suggested we ask the big 5 departments, Human Services, Health, Sheriff, Forestry, and Highway, to ask one more time whether any staff reductions might be possible. So I would say if you're a committee chair for one of those 5 departments, you should have one more conversation with your department head. Report back to me or someone on finance. But I think the county may very well need to target a 1.5 FTE overall reduction in staff, which would save or reduce costs $125,000. Another committee member put forth the possibility of furloughing some employees until the budget gets balanced. And I'll just give you a number. If 40 employees are furloughed 2 hours a week, that would reduce expenses $125,000. So summary on the difficult part of kind of where we're headed. So on the list of potential expense reduction items in our initial conversation, maybe there's $500,000. State mandates, health insurance cost adjustments, 1.5 FTE reduction, 2-hour furlough. I think there's also some other items in play. I know zoning's working through a proposal to increase fees for septic inspection renewals, which could raise $50,000. And there might be some opportunity when we dig deeper into managing the debt levy that we could pay for some more capital costs, which might free up maybe $100,000 for operating expenses. So that's where I think we're at right now. Everybody's working on their budget to get their budgets in. Kristen's forwarding those to me, and we're gonna, Roxanne and Kristen and I are gonna look at those so we can get a little prep work on where we're heading and ask some questions. But that would kind of be where I think we're headed, because by October, November, we got to have a budget in place.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you for taking us on. It's been you've got a lot of hours in it, a lot of time. You had to ask what you wish for, because you asked for it and he gave it to you. And with that, I just want to say 96 days ago, this board was sworn in and we were assigned to your committees and we went to work doing the job that the people of the county expect us to do. That is balance a budget and oversee the various departments within the county through the committees. As you, the board members, have found out, some departments are better off than others because of the way they are funded, the grants that they receive, and some of the funded by the state. Committee members have asked their department heads to see what could be cut back on, but the committee members also looked at the ways the departments are run and to see if there was any duplicating services from one department to the other. We found a few, so we're taking a look and seeing if we can eliminate duplicating services. Some committees found that what they thought the county was responsible for, we were not. But somewhere along the line, it was tasked to the county coffer. We found some departments have no direction or vision of what the county needs or wants because they were never laid out for the future. The days of hearing, you're gonna like this one, the days of hearing that that's the way we have done it for years are over. I don't wanna hear that. Started having a meeting with department heads once a month, getting their input. Some good ideas are coming out of our little department head meetings. Some sessions, the people can say anything that's on their mind, and workers are great. Our workers are great. They want to help fix the county's problems. They're their problems too. We are not the only county with problems. All 72 counties have problems. But this year I've been around home. All my work has been in Ashland, Iron, Bayfield, and Douglas, Price counties. I work with their county road departments. I talk to their chairs about how they try to balance their budget, what services they offer, what they have done to make their counties more efficient. This county isn't the worst off, nor is it the best. I think the county is in good shape for the shape it's in, but it has to change with the times. Must move forward or we will run it in the ground. With that, I would like to go around the room and ask all the county board members individually, is there anything else that you can think of out of these bags that Kurt's, some of the stuff that we already said, is there anything else you can think of that we should take a look at?
Yes, I would like to see the building across from the senior center sold or something and move our office people back in there. We got three beautiful offices empty and they're across the street. And one of them used to be this, we called him a senior advisor. He'd come in at lunchtime, he'd help you with your taxes, your insurance, anything. 5 days a week he was there. Now the guy from Ashland, I think that's where she comes. I don't know how many days she's there. But I don't think we need that building. That would help us out to get rid of it and fill our building up.
Thank you. We'll look into that.
Yep.
Mario.
I was thinking about the same thing.
Yeah, I agree that we gotta consolidate some buildings. It's maintenance, ongoing maintenance, plowing, cutting grass. It's, just one more thing to maintain. It's one more thing for Danny to maintain. The only other idea that I had brought up, I don't know how, I did some little research into it, but increasing the county sales tax. But I think whether or not we look into that, I think that there's some economic development avenues that we can start to look at a little bit different than where we've been going and utilizing the resource that we have had. Because you got to fight for every inch. If you can gain an inch in a small town, that's huge. And we just keep going backwards, so.
Bill.
Well, me and Casey had a few discussions on this. And highway department, if we cut services, we lose money. Money is paid for by the state. So if we couldn't cut service, we'd be cutting off more money.
And you're right. There's some departments that you got 10 and you need 10.
Don't run like the
I get
rest of
it.
the county.
Yep, I get it.
So we had the discussion, we couldn't come up with it.
Scotty.
Well, there was a lot of things over the course of my 10 years on here that we've done to try to reduce costs. One of it was moving the Health and Human Services out of the building there at the range. That was, I want to say, almost $3,000 a month rent there. Over $3,000 a month, and that's why we bought the Hageman building for $100,000. Right? We thought that over the span of time that was going to pay for that because we were paying a big chunk.
Yeah.
A big chunk over there. And there was other reasons why we bought that VFW building was we needed more room for storage. There wasn't enough offices at the senior center at that time. then offices got put in, right? I mean, these are things that we did with the hopes of saving money. And sometimes in the short term, it doesn't save any money and it takes years to see the benefits. The other thing was the fleet of vehicles that we bought. We were paying mileage out to all these workers that were going all over to pay a mileage out. And we bought a fleet of 4 or maybe now 5 cars that we weren't going to require paying mileage out to people. When we talk about the county levy, it was never raised. When you ask where the $2.1 million went, it went to not have to raise the levy. It went to keep the services that were there without having to go to the taxpayers to raise the levy. When you talk about the $1.1 million in COVID money, that had to be spent by a certain time. And it couldn't be spent on employees. It had to be spent on certain projects that were within the county. That money was not wasted. That money was done and used in order to not have to go to the taxpayers. And we were told numerous times by our clerk, at some point we're going to get there. And now we're there, and now we're there. That's a little bit of my summary of where we're at right now.
Dougie?
I agree with Mario, sort of taking up on that and look at some other buildings and if we can do something with them,
Great. Karen?
Well, need to look at the contract with Northland Counseling and see what we can do with that. The paid lunch, I think, technically a 7.5-hour workday, maybe that's a natural furlough. Looking at the extension for sure, because it isn't required, but we still want to keep our 4-H services, so what can we support our county to make sure that that happens? Consolidate our assistants. We have a lot of assistants that maybe there's a way to consolidate some of our clerical staff to provide services to more than one person or maybe department.
Pat, what you got?
Well, I know what departments that I work with. Basically, we can't go anywhere if we're at Eastland. And I can speak for not just towns. We're all up against the same wall.
You bet, yeah.
I mean, you're running your budget, it gets hard. Some things you want to do that people want done, you can't do it. The tax levy that the state put on us has been a burden, and until that is taken away, I just don't see how anybody's going to go about it
I understand.
without being involved.
Roxanne?
It's tough going last because you guys said a lot of things that I already had written on a piece of paper here. I mean, looking at the underutilized space or buildings and consolidating. Looking, one thing that has been mentioned is looking at positions that have been added with one-time grants or COVID money. Are those positions sustainable or still even required? Usually when positions are added with that kind of money, there's an understanding that they wouldn't be there after the money ran out unless there was some demonstrated need. A couple of people mentioned duplicated or inefficient services or efforts. And I hear things like department heads are tracking payroll and leave data because the system can't do it. So, Iron County runs a very paper-based operation. Could we save money by having better finance, health systems? And if we get one-time money, as you're talking about, Scott, I support what you said, Kurt, where we should pay down the debt. That's a one-time thing. It's $2.3 million that's hanging out there that needs to be just gone so we can stop talking about it. We should make some strategic capital investments like replacing the finance system or the healthcare system that I just heard about tonight in IT. So if we could pursue those kinds of things first, so in other words, use one-time money for one-time things. That's what we should be doing as we get these one-time monies coming in. We need to look at the contracts you had mentioned. Sometimes I'm asking for contracts and there aren't any contracts there, like, is there a contract with computer doctors? So when we have those relationships, we need to lay out whose responsibilities are what and what our rates are gonna be, because otherwise there's a potential for somebody to take advantage of us. With all that said, I think we have the responsibility here as the board, just like any responsible adult with a household to run. We need to either have more money coming in the door or have less money going out. So we have some tough decisions to make, and I think we need to look internally before we go to the taxpayers with a referendum. Because I would have a hard time selling to my constituents that I did my best to try to come up with ideas for saving money internally first. I'm glad to see so many employees here because we could not do this without you. We need you to help us. Your participation is key to the good functioning of this board. So I appreciate everything that all of you have done. I know I've asked a lot of questions of a lot of people in my 3 months here already, and I apologize if I've burdened some of you when I'm looking at you, sorry. But I've asked a lot of questions to try to understand. So going forward, we need to continue to work with our employees to find ways to balance our budget. And the bottom line is we need to be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers, fiscally responsible to the employees, and we have to look internally before going to those taxpayers with a referendum to increase taxes. And it's our responsibility as a board to take that lead.
Kurt, you got anything more?
No, I've said enough.
One more, I think we need to do more RFPs when we are actually working on really having projects for the future. To actually go out and have people compete against each other for our business.
That came up actually in the IT meeting that was just ahead of this meeting, where we were talking about the purchasing policy. And in my experience with governmental entities, there's usually some sort of threshold where you do bids and then a threshold above that where you do RFPs. That's probably what you're used to as well.
Most of the ideas that this board came up with ain't new, they ain't off the Rocker, Bayfield, Ashland counties, they've been furloughing people for a couple of years. I mean, we ain't thinking out of the box. This stuff's already been enacted in other counties, we're just doing that. Well, with that said, I'm gonna have a department head meeting probably next week to get the input, because now it's out there. We put it out there, what we're looking at. We don't know what's gonna happen. Everybody here has a vote. So we don't know what we're gonna do, but these are the things we're looking at. Is everybody fine with that?
Can I ask one question?
You go ahead, Paul.
What is interest rate on the Saxon Harbor loan that we're paying?
It's $7,000 and some dollars a month. And I was gonna bring that up because one thing happened. I went and signed that $2 million thing, all right? When I
About
went in there,
4.75.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right.
so I went in there and I signed it and they were looking at me. And she was looking at me and said, well, okay, it's for so many years and everything, and then we can just refinance it and everything. And then I'm like, the rest of you is, I'm gonna pay this off. You know, in my home, if I take out a loan, I'm paying it off. I'm not just gonna keep pushing this down the pike. It's gonna get paid off. If somebody comes in here and shoots me in a year, make sure that you pay off this loan and avenge me. Okay, but I believe that we should pay off our loans, not just keep throwing it down the road. And she thought that was, she kind of gave me a look like, wow, well, isn't that what everybody does in their own house? If they take a loan out, you pay it off. Anybody have anything else to say before we adjourn?
I agree with you on that. I don't think we should just be paying interest only on that. We should be making principal and interest.
Yeah, but
payments.
yeah,
Yeah.
something there. If anything, got anybody else have anything to say before we adjourn? Because we're going to the next phase now. With everything being covered on this agenda, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you for attending.